Is that a flannel shirt or a bathrobe?
This?
Yeah. It's a
This is a
shirt. I was
shirt.
wondering if you had pulled off a sneaky not putting on real person clothes by just
No, by not real person clothes, I'm talking about just like being in a hoodie with the hood pulled up because it's rainy here and gross, and my husband has COVID. So,
Ugh.
yeah.
I like your hat, by the way, but did you know that those can go all the way down?
Just so
Yeah,
you can
but
see the logo.
then I look like this, and I don't like that quite. Meh.
I like it.
You gotta have the hair fluff. Anyway, so we went and picked out some stuff
Don't
on
just tell me to get earplugs.
hair plugs. No, I said you gotta have the hair fluff, like poking out of
Fluff.
the.
Oh,
Yeah, Josh, go get hair plugs. Why don't you?
The go to Turkey and come back with your
Yeah.
head as one giant scab. You ever seen those pictures?
The best part about that is the planes, like where they take the video of the plane, like a person just is like surveying the plane, and then it's all the people with the wraps on top of their heads. It's fantastic.
what you're talking about, but I like it.
Yeah. You can go to Turkey. I don't know why it's Turkey and pay like $10,000 for them to transplant like 30,000 hair follicles into your head to replace your
Yep.
hair. And it
Yep.
works really well. But the healing afterwards, your head is like one giant scab for like a month or something, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the funny part about it is the people who just go to Turkey, like, hi, I'm going to Turkey on vacation. And then they're taking videos on the plane of it's just like rows of gentlemen who just have like wraps around their head of bandages because they've all had this surgery. And it just like seas of people of head wrap bandage that are all disgusting because they all went and got hair plugs. So yeah. Yeah. The more you know. Welcome, everybody, to the Stratosphere podcast. I am Owen Phillips. I'm joined today with our CEO, owner, and cybersecurity architect, Joshua Raby, and our senior cybersecurity engineer, Joel Ricane. We are doing something a little bit different this week. We're going to mix it up. We are not just going to go on our own journey of things that we want to tell you. We scour the internet to see what other people are asking about in the CMMC world, in the good, bad, and ugly category. I think we're just going to skip all the pleasantries today and jump right into that unless anybody has anything to add, which
Can
I will
I
always ask.
can I add a little preface so we don't come across
Yeah.
as
Oh,
complete
yeah,
jerks
yeah.
with this?
Yeah. Yes,
So
please.
I think it's fairly common nowadays for people when they're looking something up for the first time to stumble across a Reddit that's about that thing. It happens a lot with CMMC. So I'll check that like a couple times a week, just see what's up, see what people are asking. And it's a really wild place for CMMC. I think there's like some really, really knowledgeable people on there who ask and answer questions. There's a lot of really unknowledgeable people who will very confidently answer questions incorrectly. So I guess all this to say, we're probably going to make fun of some stuff here, but there is a lot of like good content out there. I think we're just trying to help. It's hard for a new person to decipher good from bad when you don't know anything. And so we're
For
just going to
sure.
highlight some of the bad that may have slipped through.
Yeah. Well, and I guess to ratchet that up one more step, as we're moving into the world of AI search, meaning you go to Google and you type in, what color is Pikachu, and then it pops up immediately, the AI response, and then it says Pikachu is purple. And you go, well, I'm pretty sure that I know for a fact that he is yellow, but, somebody on Reddit said Pikachu is purple, and so it's just generating that. So that's the other part of this that is kind of the scary conundrum of people putting message board comments and being authoritative about them. Yeah. Amen to that, Joel. So we're going
I know
to, oh, yeah.
absolutely nothing about Pokemon, so that was on me.
Wait, did we just discover a rift between us?
No clue.
My headphone case right now, this is my headphone case. So that is the level that we are dealing with.
I still have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, well, we're going to have to deal with that at some point in time. So my comment to you all as I read these things, if we do acronyms, please make sure that we expand on what the acronym means, so that way everybody is going to be a part of the conversation in the same way, and that we're not leaving anyone out. Okay, so first one, we're just gonna go like big picture. So this is in our CMMC, so subreddit CMMC. Title Microsoft 365 GCC High question. Any DoD contractors out there have experience with implementing Microsoft 365 GCC High, looking for recommendations and advice on how to move forward with GCC High? Very broad.
So this was what gave me the idea to do this. I saw this one when it was pretty fresh, and one of the first comments on it, if you scroll down a bit, someone who says that they are an IT director who assists orgs in level 2, telling that person that they will be able to fully inherit half of the controls for CMMC simply by using GCC High, which is a wildly inaccurate statement, particularly without knowing anything about that person's environment. When you use GCC High, you can, depending on how you're using it, inherit some controls, but it's completely dependent on, if you we make enclaves that are virtual machines in GCC High, those will inherit a large amount of controls. Or you could just be using it with a laptop plugged into it, in which case your laptop is inheriting almost no controls.
What does it mean to inherit a control?
So GCC High is FedRAMP or FedRAMP High. So it meets a different cybersecurity standard, which translates down to you for some of the controls. So encryption at rest, when your data is in GCC High, you can't encrypt it, but we know it's encrypted because Microsoft has FedRAMP. So you inherit that encryption from it. And that's a really clear, easy example, but there's lots of other ones that don't inherit down, like granting access to it. It's your environment in GCC High. It's completely up to you to grant or not grant access. So you can never inherit those types of controls. So it was a really overconfident, way overly broad statement to someone who's just coming here looking for advice.
If I could make it a really dumb example, it's like giving somebody a helmet and saying this will keep you safe, and them walking around carrying it and never putting it on. It's kind of like an example, and it's way oversimplified, but there are little things that you could do in your GCC High environment that would make everything null and void. And so it isn't like a Swiss Army knife fix all. Applied with that, probably made assumptions that the other person was knowing what they were doing and they would implement it correctly. But you could know what you're doing and then do something that would make you not compliant. It is just more complicated that trying to give people benefit of the doubt. But also it's there's way more involved than you're just going to get a Reddit post saying you're good to go. And what we've seen when talking to clients is we are very rarely the first person that they've talked to, and rarely the first person that they've actually paid and engaged with, and they've gotten nowhere, because it is a lot of somebody seeing something, feeling like, I got this, I'm super confident, and then it just not being done up to a level that'll pass an audit.
So if I'm potential client, I'm a prime or something, or I'm a subcontractor for a prime, and I'm going out into the world looking to become compliant, and I know that GCC High is something that I'm thinking about adding to my business, what is something that I should look for as a green flag, red flag in hiring an MSSP or a contractor or something of that nature, an IT contractor who's going to implement this for me? What are good things, what are bad things, and what are some of the people who are on here asking how to implement so that they can do it for the person who's trying to contract with them?
I think anybody who has experience should have more specifics than just half of your controls are met. Microsoft has documentation you can get access to, their shared responsibility matrix, which will tell you for their different offerings which controls are met, which aren't met, which have some shared responsibility between the two of you. So anyone who can't kind of tell you the details, the specifics of that, I would see that as a red flag.
Okay.
I would say look for a company that is, just because you're an RPO or an RP doesn't necessarily mean you know what you're talking about. The RP cert is really easy to get, and RP is just for CMMC level 1. RPA is for level 2, but it also is pretty easy to get. So going back and having somebody who has experience in audits, working with auditors, across different platforms is important. Buzzwords that maybe you hear that are important is NIST 800. So dealing with the NIST framework, 800, 171, or 853, working in those, having experiences in those, and working with auditors is all pretty important. CCP, another one that's harder to get, So somebody who has a CCP, CCA, those are good certs to look for. So if someone's really put a lot of time, effort, and money into getting it set up. Like registering for an RPO is expensive. Getting all of these certs is expensive. So if they're going down that route and getting all of those, they're obviously invested in it, but having actual experience in working with it's important. And this is new. So, you might find a perfectly great company that has a lot of experience but hasn't done a CMMC level 2 audit and passed someone before because it is so new, but they should at least have experience in doing other audits.
I think you touched on a thing. If we can flip over to another question, because you hit the nail on the head there. So this one was one that I kind of laughed at a little bit because it definitely felt like I have no idea what's going on, but please, the internet, tell me how it works. So this is also in subreddit r CMMC. It says our firm just landed a NIST SP 800-171 assessment and implementation project looking for tips, tools, and real world insights. And then I'm not going to read this whole thing because it's a very long post, but there's a component in here that says, I'm genuinely trying to deepen my understanding of 800-171 beyond just the text of the controls. I'd really appreciate your insights on the following. What should we really be checking for in an assessment? I'm trying to break down each control family, blah, blah, blah. How deep should we go if there's no CUI in scope yet? It sounds very broad. And like, this is not a person that you would want to hire to do this job, even though apparently they were just hired to do this job. So,
Yeah, this is kind of my worst nightmare from a business point of view is companies who know nothing about it but are willing to just like throw out a cheap bid and get a contract and then figure it out on the go. Like I think what Joshua said is true that you can have experience in other cybersecurity frameworks that carries over, but you definitely don't want your first time doing this to be a full-on assess, implement, get someone certified type project. Definitely not if you're at the point of needing to go to Reddit to be like, what is CMMC? How do I do this? Like I think this is kind of what Joshua was touching on, that there's organizations out there that have seen CMMC and want in on it and are kind of biting off more than they can chew.
I would say rings true not just in CMC, but in really any product that you're going after or you're looking at. A salesman's job is to sell you something. And they're
Mm-hmm.
really good at selling you something and promising the world and saying they can do everything. And some of them are blatantly lying, and some of them think they're right, but they don't really know. And some of them are like, it's not my job, it's somebody else's job to figure it out. So when you're talking, make sure you're talking to, the actual person that's going to be implementing. A lot of time you can say, can I talk to the engineer that'll be doing it and ask them questions? And they're usually way more honest. And the salesperson kicks them afterwards. And like, why did you tell them the truth in the call? But, try and talk to the actual people doing the implementation.
yeah. Yeah, that's my favorite comment is the one that has the most likes on it or the most upvotes. And it says, this is going to be one of those situations where the consultants need to bring in a consultant. Like, seriously, find a CCA or at least an RP who seems to have their stuff together. And then this commenter does give good advice. It says, that being said, go to the CMMC Level 2 Assessment Guide, the CMMC Assessment Procedure, the CAP, which we've talked about before, and the scoping guidance, and that should be your Bible for how to move forward on this. But yeah, I agree. It definitely it read like I have no idea what's going on, even though we took this contract. And I mean, that's what you guys have seen from people who have come to us after going through other firms and then not having solutions on the back end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the metaphor I've been using is it's like there's these companies doing this who it's if as if like a professional golfer decided they could go play in the NHL just because they're both a sport. Like just because they're like vaguely the same thing doesn't mean you can just go from one to the other and be
You
good
got a
at.
stick and you're hitting a playable object,
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Awesome. Okay, there was one more GCC High question. So I feel like we should do that before we move on to other things. And so this one, still living in the CMMC subreddit, says GCC H approach question. So we are a completely cloud native company with about 20 people who have access to our GCC High SharePoint tenant. All users have company-owned and Intune enrolled laptops. We are trying to secure them properly while also keeping them out of scope of the assessment. To do this, we set up a SharePoint site that only stores CUI. It's not accessible to all 20 people. It has all sharing and sync functionality turned off, meaning only an invited member of the site can view the files. blah, blah, blah. We don't generate our own CUI, only email from government customers. So the workflow would be inter-tenant via Outlook if deemed CUI, move to CUI SharePoint, never being downloaded locally or accessed locally on machines. We're still hardening machines, but trying to limit risks during the assessment. There's no question here, but
Okay.
I'll give a TLDR on the environment, and it goes back to the whole GCC High and that person saying you just inherit everything. Here's how you can just blow that all out of the water. So essentially, they have their GCC High tenant, which is good. They can inherit all these controls from there, so they love it. They want to keep everything there, but they have to connect to the data somehow. So now they're connecting a laptop to this SharePoint site, and now this laptop, this physical device, is now in scope. So they're now blowing their entire inherited environment and bringing something else into scope.
Yeah. And what got me about this one was down in the comments where they're explaining more. They wind up saying that they're not considering them out of scope. Someone like calls them out on, oh, that's not really out of scope. They say they're just a contractor risk managed asset, which is one of the asset categories in CMMC. And so therefore we don't have to do anything to it, which is like they found this nugget of information, which like, yes, there is contractor risk managed assets and they do have slightly different rules around them. And if you read the scoping guidance in a really favorable way, you might be able to interpret it as we don't have to do anything to it, but that is like flatly incorrect. You still have to apply all the controls to it. They don't get assessed the same way. Like an assessor isn't going to come ask all the questions about them, but they still have to meet all of the controls. So it was like they had kind of this twisted interpretation of things to get the answer that they want. And I didn't see anyone correct them on it either. They just kind of said it and then the conversation moved along. So that was what got me about this one.
And it can't be a contractor risk managed asset either, because it is their means of getting to it. They're like, well, it's not intended to, just the only way we can, which isn't actually true, but it's the only way they could do it without making it more complicated. So, and there's so many pitfalls like that in this where it's kind of like, well, technically this will work. And so we're going to go walk the audit with this. And an auditor who knows what they're doing is going to say, no, that's not correct. That's not how you do it. There's a right way and a wrong way, and this is the wrong way.
What is an example of like an actual risk managed asset, a contractor risk managed asset?
So a good example would be like we have a client who's got a big infrastructure that's a bunch of on-prem servers. And so they have like licensing servers, which aren't segregated off of the network, but they will never handle CUI. They technically could because they're not segregated away from it, but their purpose is not at all related to that. So they're like a contractor risk managed asset, but you still implement all the controls on them. They just never get assessed.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry, I cut you off also, Joel, if you had any other comments to make on this.
That, like, this is what's really bad about mistakes like this is it's like scoping is your jumping off point. And if you make these bad decisions early on and then run with it for your 6-month CMMC project, you're going to have wasted so much time and money just going completely the wrong direction with it and not find out, until way too late.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's so scary about this kind of very creative, optimistic scoping that people do sometimes.
That's a really good point that Joel brought up, though. Is like you're essentially writing all this documentation, all these policies, procedures, implementing all these security controls that are invalid, and now you have to go back and redo at least 50% of the work, probably more, and then on top of implementing something different to meet these requirements. So it's a huge waste of money. It's just not just time, but time is money, and it just So it's very important to make sure you have that scoping clear and understood before you go implementing it.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like once you do all of this and you decide that those are out of scope, make the decision that those are out of scope, and then you have put in all the controls and put in all the effort, but then you go to sit down in the audit, the auditor is just going to call you on it, right? And
really pre-audit. Like one of the first things to do with an assessor is have like a scoping call. There's some other steps before you even get to the assessment, essentially to kind of smoke out things like this to make sure that people don't sign a check for an assessment and then find it out.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so you won't even get to the point of being able to have an assessment.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
Like an auditor wants you to pass. Like they're there, they want people to pass these things, and they're going to try and find, say, hey, you totally missed this. Like, let's cancel this. I don't want to come charge you and have you fail because you're not ready at all. But there's a chance that like it's not their responsibility to find everything that you messed up but ahead of the time. Like there's a chance you go through the audit and now you're paying for it because they're there and you're walking through it and they find one of these. It's it blows everything out of the water. You have to start completely over. So
Yeah,
having that scope figured out that at the beginning is important.
if you do sneak it by an assessor and then it comes out mid-assessment, then it is like game over, assessment off. Then you have wasted all your money. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, an assessor's not going to be like, hey, you failed this one thing, so everything's blown, so you don't have to pay me now. Or, it's like,
Right.
nope, wasn't their responsibility. This was yours. So don't waste your money.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Okay. I think I have one or two more.
We're coming up on an important meeting for me, so I'm gonna go talk to some people about getting some CMC work done and let you guys finish this off and talk about some important stuff.
Sounds good. I think we only have like one, maybe two more. So thanks for hanging out with us, Josh.
Thanks, guys.
I just wanted to hit on this one, Joel, because I don't know what this is at all. So
Mhm.
I kind of want to know what it is. All these acronym soup, alphabet soup, whatever you want to call it. So we're still in the CMMC subreddit, and this one is titled ERP systems. We're
Mhm.
beginning discussions on whether ERP systems are in scope. We're using an enclave for compliance, but our ERPs are outside of it. I, of course, have my thoughts already, but wanted to get thoughts from anyone in this thread who did anything around ERP systems in their audits. I like that they hedge and say, I have my thoughts, but we're not going to go so far as to say what those thoughts are.
So an ERP, and this is something I'm not like a pro on, but it's an enterprise resource planning system. They're things businesses use to like manage kind of all aspects of what they do, like scheduling, dispatching. They can put data in there. So it's really complicated just because it can be used for so many different things. So that makes it tricky off the bat. So when you scope it, of course, it all comes down to, do you have CUI in there? Which can be a really tricky question to answer on its own. But what got me in this one was there's people telling him there's some really bad CUI advice. So like that's the trickiest thing about CMMC is figuring out what your actual CUI is. It's supposed to be the government's job to tell people. They don't always do a great job of it. So then people are trying to figure it out after the fact, which like you could have a room full of lawyers and it would still be tough.
Yeah.
But so what happens is you get people need an answer when sometimes there just isn't one, and they start coming up with all sorts of their own little rules for what is and isn't CUI, and it really complicates things. So in here, this person is getting told if they have part numbers, if they're like manufacturing ball bearings and they have in their ERP that ball bearing 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 5 is like, those kinds of things, that's their CUI. I assume they got to that conclusion because like the schematics for these things could be CUI, but that does not mean that anything related to it is CUI. And as much as I won't say what is CUI, I will definitely say that a part number is not CUI. Yeah. I know that one for sure.
Okay.
So just really bad scoping advice that's going to send someone in the wrong direction, it's going to make their scope way bigger than it has to be and make the whole process a lot harder.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I guess we can touch on the follow-up one then that is within that same bubble. It's CMMC CUI question. I'm contracted by an import-export compliance company. They get questions about clients regarding CUI. There's nobody on the team that's CMMC certified, so this is outside of their scope. The owner of the company approached me and asked me to look into this a bit more. Apologies for asking these questions. So is this something feasible for me to do? I'm a 2-year systems administrator.
Yeah, there's a few red flags in there, like already. No one on the team is CMMC certified. People don't get CMMC certified. No one on any team is CMMC certified. I assume maybe they meant has their CCP or CCA or something, but there's a kind of tenuous grasp on the terminology there, which is a bad sign. And then, a system administrator with 2 years of experience could be like a great technical guy, but is not going to be your compliance cybersecurity expert for anything, let alone this type of question.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's definitely, just from talking to you about this, the background of being in the systems for a while and understanding how CMMC kind of was birthed, in on the layers of all of the other components of compliance that it came out of. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
And just to be
no.
fair to whoever is asking this question, the system administrator with 2 years of experience, it's almost certainly not their fault. What happens all the time is some company wants to get into this, drastically underestimates the level of complexity involved, and they just chuck it to someone like, hey, the CMMC thing, you figure it out, even if they have no experience in it. So I'm certain this person just got put in a really difficult situation and is trying to do their best to deal with it. But yeah, but is probably really unprepared for what they're getting into.
Yeah, definitely sounds like one of those things where, somebody in the higher ups said, this is a compliance framework that we should be doing because other people are doing it. And you are in charge of now being that person rather than thinking about the full scale of what that means for your business, which is what we've been harping on since the beginning of this podcast. So
Very much.
yeah. So we wish you luck, Tech Warrior 13, with all of your with all of the
Fitting name.
responsibility that's been placed upon you. Well, Joel, those are all the questions that I have for you from the beautiful ecosystem that is Reddit. But any other non-CMMC stuff worth noting, or that's outside of the realm of this conversation today, and it's a Friday?
It's a Friday, and I've been pretty focused this week. I actually don't have any good general cybersecurity tidbits for you right now.
No, that's
but
all fine. That's all fine. Did you consume any piece of media this week that made you happy or brought you some amount of emotion?
man, I just started rewatching Better Call Saul with my girlfriend who hasn't seen it before. So
What a great
Mhm.
Breaking Bad was fantastic, and that is one of the best spin-offs that has ever existed. And what's that guy's name? What is his
Bob Odenkirk.
Yes, he
Yeah.
is so good. He's just freaking incredible. Bob Oden, and he won an award for that, I'm pretty sure. So, anyways, yeah, big fan.
Yeah. What
Big
about
fan
you?
of Better Call Saul. Embarrassing, maybe. So again, my house is kind of sad right now. Husband's sick. It's a quiet. It was raining last night, which was nice. It's been so hot here. But I watched, and he begrudgingly watched half of it, K-pop Demon Hunters. I don't know if you have seen this on Netflix. It's like the #1 streaming everything right now.
I have
It was
not.
great. It was really just fantastic. It like, I don't know, animation 10 out of 10. It's from the studio that did Into the Spider-Verse. So it's that
Okay.
fun, like not quite claymation, not quite 2D, somewhere in between there. Anyways, it's a great time. The songs are fantastic, and the meme ability on the internet is 20 out of 10. You can just watch videos about it forever because they're great. So
Huh.
anyways, that's my nonsense thing for the week.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. Okay, Joel. Well, for the Stratosphere podcast, I'm Owen, joined today by Joel and Joshua, who is no longer with us because he had to jump off. Until next time, if you have any questions and would not like to be one of the Redditors that we randomly grab off the internet, you can ask questions at CMMC at stratus-services.com. We'll catch you in the next podcast. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.